want to go ahead and say this. This right here is going to be a bit of a two-parter. I'm going to go ahead and call this video right here the what the left does not get about Islam. And of course, part two, which will come out a little bit later on this week, will be basically saying why it is that the left is useful for Islam, meaning useful idiots. So make sure you guys stick around for the full piece as we dive into this.
Women.
Oh, and then the liberal hijab is the COVID mask right there.
Well, but look, you like, this is the weirdest thing. There was this story about Katie Hobbs vetoing a bill that would ban males from competing in female sports. And then you have stories like this where someone made a point that said, notice that many of these young college-age women are wearing hijab. They're taking the keffiyeh and they're wrapping themselves and they're wearing long sleeves. Do they understand what they're supporting when they're supporting this? Because I got to wonder is it naivety or come on, like maybe they really want Sharia male?
No. Before we get started, I want you guys to know really quick that what you just saw there, a little over a minute from the Timcast episode with Elijah Schaefer the other day, there's going to be a lot from that episode sprinkled out throughout the rest of this week. Just want you guys to know that right now. I don't want to try to lie or deceive anybody. But obviously, it serves a two-part video, and also to go on top of that, there's also a segment involving Tony Schaefer from a previous episode that perfectly encapsulated why it is that nobody wanted to join the military and why nobody wants to join now. And also to go on top of this is also going to be in my feature on the rights issue with Israel, that right there being the, let's just say, the more far-right types. But we'll get to that a little bit later on in the week. With that out of the way, now let's go ahead and dive into this. Before I talk about the left and Islam, I need to say this. They always find a way to try to latch on to just about anything and everything. And of course, we could always say things like, well, it's pretty obvious that these people are just lonely. They don't really have any actual life experience, which I think is probably the most important thing, because once you get life experience, your perspectives begin to change on things. And also to go on top of this, some people will say that maybe it's just the effeminate nature of the left to do this. However, I do believe that it's actually something a little bit more sinister. However, I also believe that it's somebody else that's taking control or taking the reins or, let's just say, playing puppet master to a lot of different groups. And of course, at some point in time, those different groups are going to start to just good old-fashioned eat each other. But for the purpose of this video here, I'm going to try to, of course, I just kind of gave away the game a little bit, but still at the same time, you guys know me. I'll give away some of it, then come right back to it at the very end of the video and just kind of go through why I feel the way I feel and what exactly I see and exactly why it is the way that it is. But still, though, this topic of the left and Islam, it's really got me wondering exactly how far gone these people really and truly are. And no, I'm not talking about radical Islam being gone. I'm talking about the people on the left. Now, as you guys are seeing some of these protests, some of this footage, not a whole lot, just some of the stuff in the B-roll footage, including the one that happened at, I wouldn't call it a protest that happened at Duke University. I'd call it more of a walkout. Basically, what happened was that Jerry Seinfeld was the guest speaker at Duke's commencement address, or Duke's commencement. Of course, I graduated from college, university, and I didn't go to graduation because of the COVID regulations. That was back in 2021. But the thing is this right here. You see the students, they walk out, they walk off. Of course, you've also got this stuff from Columbia University, too, where a girl actually ripped up her degree, which, by the way, they cannot reprint one of those. It's just stupidity. But the thing about Duke University is that Duke University stuck to their rules on this. There was even a student that actually went on Fox News the other day, a Jewish student, claiming that Duke was actually not exactly what we call a hot spot for those protests. Now, I'm talking about the protest again, even though they occurred last week, because they're probably going to occur again this week. So much to the point that the Democratic Party has floated the possibility of doing a semi-online or a let's just say kind of what they did in 2020, basically good old-fashioned Zoom calls, no people, anything like that. People just get in front of a camera and talk. There's no crowd or anything. They're thinking about doing that again, a la shades of 1968 Democratic National Convention. Or, of course, it could also be the Klan Convention, which, of course, occurred back earlier in the century. I do not have the exact year on me, but of course I'm showing you guys the thing in the end card here, so that way you guys can see it, or the side card, whichever one you might want to say, or want to call it, because obviously I've edited it in. But doing this video the way I'm doing right now, I'm not remembering the actual year, which, by the way, is in fact embarrassing, but still at the same time, given the left's past, especially when it comes to racism and anything like that, I don't think that understanding or not remembering the exact date of that DNC should really truly surprise anybody, because they've done so much crazy crap that's got people to the point to where they, quite frankly, can't even, let's just say, remember what the hell they had for breakfast in the morning. Just putting that out there. That right there is the amount of confusion these people have caused. The thing about left and Islam has got a lot of people wondering why it is that they love to attach themselves to an ideology or to a group of people that, quite frankly, given the first chance they get, would absolutely annihilate them. You see, you got these people out here who hold up these signs saying things like queers for Palestine, LGBTQ for Palestine, not realizing that in the Gaza Strip, if you live there and you live that said lifestyle, they would treat you in a way that you probably, quite frankly, would not appreciate. Some of these people get killed. Some of these people get tossed off the roofs of buildings, still getting killed. Some of these people get stoned, basically getting killed. And of course, to go on top of this, some of these people get locked up for 10 to 20 years, and sometimes they get beheaded. Also, obviously, killed. The point is this right here. The current philosophy of the U.S. progressive left does not exactly match up with radical Islam or Islam itself. Do you guys remember a while back, it was a little over a year ago, and I even did a couple of videos on this, there was a situation in Dearborn, Michigan, I'm showing you guys some stuff in the B-roll footage, where the new curriculum was introducing books like said, This Boy is Blue and Gender Queer, all the books that, quite frankly, should have been banned from elementary schools and middle schools and even high school, in my opinion. They had a bit of let's just say that they had a situation that happened there. And of course, the Muslims that lived in the area, in the town, which by the way, Dearborn, Michigan is predominantly Muslim city. Okay. They protested this. They got the books removed. And then eventually the Muslims that lived in the town, like I said, town is mostly Muslim. They had a town hall meeting, had a vote, and they banned anything pride related, including the pride flag. That right there, of course, was actually pretty daggone light. All right, that was light compared to what happens in the Middle East to somebody who lives said lifestyle. But what have they been doing recently? Well, let's take a look.
It can't work, right? It has to collapse under its own genderqueer / pro-terrorist weight, because LGBTQ, AIP, Western feminists, Islam, kind of strange bedfellows, but you're still seeing these people, for whatever reason, at least performatively flocking to Islam now.
I really recommend it. There are a lot of people who are converting. There's a lot of people who are reading it. I'm not saying I'm going to convert. I'm not saying that I wouldn't. And I don't know. I know that this is exactly what I need right now. I just wanted to say thank you and just point out how excited I am.
One, the easiest one maybe. Chop their head.
I got that little bit from Steven Crowder, and of course there's obviously a little bit more from Crowder because he did have another segment on this, because obviously you see the craziness and you see all of a sudden in the middle of nowhere, you've got a bunch of white kids praying with Muslims in solidarity. Now, I've got nothing against Muslims and I've got nothing against Islam, except the fact that I'm Christian, obviously. And being a guy who did 2 tours in Iraq, I understand that some of the Arabs, especially, well, really to tell you the truth, it's actually a lot more Arabs than you think, actually assisted us with the mission at hand. The same thing happened in Afghanistan, which is one of the reasons why I was so upset, not just about the fact that we lost 11 Marines, a soldier, and of course a corpsman. It's also the fact that a lot of the people that would have helped these men out, these men and women, they were kind of getting the short end of the stick and kind of being abandoned as well. I mean, I'm not okay with importing a bunch of people from other countries, but I do believe that if there are people who actually help the U.S. on the ground, informants, people who genuinely want to help, I do think we need to go out of our way to at least protect them to a certain degree. The agreement that was had there, of course, was conditions-based, and Biden wanted a photo op, so he pushed the date he pushed the monthly timeline from May to September. I've had to tell people all the time when they say that Trump was responsible for that entire situation that look at who the hell was in office and look at who the hell had been in office for 8 months to that point in time. Just saying it happened on your watch, so therefore it's your fault. But that segment of the kids praying, let's look at it one more time.
There, but you're not. The U.S. doesn't feel like my home. And no, affecting somebody else. We're trying not to.
Present butts.
What happened to cultural appropriation? We're just showing up. It's like, yeah, what are we doing? Yeah, I mean, I'll face Mecca. I'll do it with you. I mean, I still blow guys, but is it okay?
Well, I've heard a lot of responses to this, and obviously as a Christian, you think I would be a little bit concerned, and I am. But at the same time, I also know young people are. They're not exactly the brightest when it comes to the topic of actual real world knowledge. As I've said before, a lot of these kids have got this issue where they have a complete total lack of knowledge. A lot of them, by the way, live in bubbles. A lot of them were raised in bubbles. And of course, a lot of them were also raised in cities. Now, I'm not trying to beat up on anybody who lives inside of a city. I'm pretty sure a good portion of my subscriber base is from and still lives inside these big cities. I understand that. However, if you're subscribed to this channel, my guess to you would be that you're probably pretty well based. So I appreciate you guys sticking around. This right here is not to make fun of anybody who's not subscribed, so don't take it that way at all. I'm just simply saying that for the most part, most of the people who end up falling for this type of grift or going along with this type of nonsense typically tend to come from very, very blue areas. Some of them, of course, don't come from blue areas, but yet they join in with those who, quite frankly, vote blue, and they go through a bit of a liberal phase. I've personally seen this, especially at a college campus. I've been to college 3 times in my life. The first time was actually 4. The first time was a bit of a failure. I dropped out. The second time I went, I graduated. The third time I went, I got a diploma in law enforcement academy, but never got hired. And of course, the last time I went, of course, I went to a community college and then transferred to a university. And of course, to go on top of that, I graduated there. I've seen exactly what the colleges do, in fact, produce. However, I would say this right here, too. A lot of times we tend to overblow what happens at the actual colleges themselves. A lot of these kids, once they get some life experience, they do very, very well. They eventually come around and they eventually go on top of this. They eventually get the brains back, and at some point in time, they begin to see the nuttiness, and they just kind of look back and laugh on it. Then again, though, there are some that are true believers, that stay true believers, and those who continue the grift for a very, very long time. They continue to do it over and over and over again until after a while, they eventually have some form of epiphany, and they realize that everything that they've been doing in their life has been absolutely wrong. Every vote they've ever made, every decision they've made was obviously the wrong one. I do believe in redemption. Obviously, as a Christian man, I do believe in forgiveness, but at the same time, at this moment in time in our history, I know I'm saying time a lot, we are dealing with pretty much the worst forces in the world. So when you see what you guys saw, you probably would think to yourself, wow, the American left is absolutely 100% completely incompatible with Islam. They are. Islam is much, much more traditional. It's also much, much more patriarchal, which, by the way, goes back to that first clip that I shared, which came from the Tim Pool, Elijah Schaefer segment, because these ladies are obviously, don't seem to realize that they're actually supporting the patriarch, whether they know it or not. But speaking of that episode, let's watch just a little bit more before we go any further.
No, it's this. Women trend towards being liberal, and we know that, especially Gen Z, and young men trend towards being conservative. If we take race as a factor, we can even look at, let's say, white people in this video, which we're looking at majority here. White men are at a much higher rate of trending conservative, and white women are trending liberal because some minorities like black are considered politically inactive. So when you look at this, I'm just saying this. When you look at this, liberal women naturally, they still want a leader.
It is fundamentalist.
Yeah, they don't care. They're not thinking about the logic.
Right. So the point is,
they don't care about that.
It's one thing to lead to move towards so you're not saying liberal. You're saying like
they're female. These are they're doing circular dances.
You're not talking about liberalism. You're talking about like American Democrat political faction.
They're focusing on who trends
thing
down.
Today.
No. Like we had this discussion with Connor Tomlinson about like actual liberalism. There's post-liberals.
Still want strength. They still need protection. They still want someone who's around. But they're all leftists. You can forgive a woman for being liberal because literally forgiving a woman for being liberal is just like forgiving a man for being a man and doing something stupid or like breaking his bones or going out and doing something crazy. Like women lead by emotion. We've given them the right to vote. I digress whether that was a good idea or not. And now they're out and they're parading around in public. They're going to go towards these causes because this is an emotional cause. This is something that's going to.
In the words of the great Al Bundy, only women understand other women. Women do understand other women, and they absolutely hate each other. Now, post-liberalism, that type of stuff there, I think that that's a conversation on its own. Take a look at someone like, say, James Lindsay, for example. James Lindsay is actually the prototypical classical liberal, but of course he's been branded as right-wing and conservative. But then again, if you actually go to his Twitter page, his Twitter account, this guy is as anti-Christian conservative as you can get. I mean, if you actually look at it, but still at the same time, though, and I may do a video on that there at a later date. The point is this right here. It looks like maybe these people have lost the idea of logic. Now, there's another segment that Tim had in there where he talked about Alex Stein going to a college campus and, for the most part, getting attacked by a bunch of University of Texas students. He got attacked because he basically walked up there. We all know how Alex is, but still at the same time, though, sometimes he can be annoying and sometimes he can be absolutely hilarious. But he was asking these people, look, you do understand that Islam doesn't exactly, how do I say, they're not exactly down with that lifestyle that you guys are okay with. There's not much logic. There's a lot of irrationality and let's just say, a general lack of knowledge of the culture that they're quite frankly supporting. Now, I'm not saying that these people are supporting Sharia law. Now, let me say this really quick before I go any further and get back to that interview. In that interview, that was probably one of Tim's best episodes because they had an actual, honest to God, hardcore back and forth. And it's one of those segments where you would kind of think to yourself, well, I agree with him on this one. I disagree. I agree. I disagree. I agree. I disagree. Of course, there's a lot of things that Elijah said that I agree with, but there's also a lot of things that Elijah said that I fully disagree with. Let me just go ahead and say this before I go any further. This video right here is not designed to paint Elijah Schaffer as in a negative light. I actually think that Elijah in this particular segment here, especially when we talk about Islam, actually brought up a lot of very, very good points, especially when we talk about Islam and women. And of course, these ladies out here who are practically supporting the patriarchy, even though they claim they don't like the patriarchy. Somebody's probably going to say that they're just anti-American. I think it's a little bit deeper than that. And obviously, I would refer people to someone who's a psychologist, but still at the same time, though, people can obviously see the writing on the wall and people can call it the absolute obvious that for the most part, it's just illogical and irrational of what they're doing. So it seems to me like what the hell is really and truly going on in this situation is that it's exactly what I had said before and many others have said. They are finding a way to put all their grievances into one. And this right here has got to do, once again, with good old-fashioned identity politics. It's just that instead of BLM, they have found the war between Israel and Gaza as their vessel to do so.
When Alex Stein went and started asking people, and they genuinely do not know. They really don't seem to know that, for instance, in Gaza, if it is a crime to be gay, it's 10 years in prison if you're gay. If they catch you doing some kind of gay act. And there are many instances where Palestinians from either Gaza or the West Bank sought refuge in Israel and were granted refuge. But they genuinely don't know any of this. That's why I refer to, when people talk about wokeness, and they try and say that it's like postmodernist and communist, that's all wrong. Wokeness is literally just an amorphous blob of cult-like adherence to group social norms. That's it. There's nothing there. That's why you've got women at Columbia wearing hijab now and complaining about patriarchy at the same time.
I talked about Stein earlier. I also talked about not only Stein, but I also talked about the situation in Dearborn, Michigan. The current left at this moment in time has this mob mentality of we're just going to shove this right down your throat. That right there is what they have. The problem with that is, of course, that people do eventually fight back and people do eventually bite back. I'm pretty sure that there are some people, especially those in Dearborn, Michigan, that were white liberals who said, I don't care, we need to do this right here for gay and trans kids. We need to make sure that they're represented. It's representation there. Which, by the way, representation is another video that I'll be doing in the future, talking about why it is that representation, while it definitely looks good to the woke left, at the end of the day, it just simply just drains your power because you'll have representation, but you won't have much power when you actually get in office as a collective. But we'll talk about that in another video. The fact of the matter is this right here. The current left right now is utilizing social media. They're utilizing the social norms. They're utilizing groupthink, all that type of stuff to try to get their message out. And one of the ways that they do this is obviously by latching onto a cause like, say, what's going on with the Palestinians. The problem is that after a while, Muslims, especially Muslim students, they begin to realize that these people are a bunch of clowns. Which also makes me think what's going to happen if, say, the Biden administration brings in some Palestinian refugees and Sunni Muslims. And they go to these very, very big blue cities and they see pride flags and they see gay couples. Or these feminists who claim to be against the patriarchy but yet are now supporting the patriarchy. You've already got this issue in New York City where women are getting attacked. And of course, if I remember correctly, they had Mr. Penny locked up. And of course, they voted for the nonsense they voted for. It almost feels to me like these people are inviting in their own death. I mean, it's kind of like, maybe you weren't exactly, how do I say, knowledgeable about the snake you were bringing in. that right there to a certain extent can be forgivable, even though it's not. These people right here are openly allowing the lions, the snakes, and everything in to their den in the hopes that they can just kind of like get high with them. That's basically the way I think about it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that creature, when its high wears off and the person that's sitting on the couch still laughing about it, that terrible creature is eventually going to rip the other, that's eventually going to rip your ass apart. I'm just simply saying the two ideals are definitely not compatible. And Tim, by the way, kind of personified that when he talked about the situation with Alex Stein. Now, it's possible that those libs at the college campus may have actually known who Alex Stein was. I personally don't think they did, but still at the same time, though, he comes up there and he asks you, hey, look, man, you guys, you do know that this type of ideology is not exactly, how do I say, compatible with these people's way of life, right? You do understand that Muslims, for the most part, are super, super, super right-wing and super, super, super patriarchal and traditional, right? They're not down with that type of crap. I mean, they only vote Democrat because the Democrats have a much, much lighter stance on the topic of Israel, where Republicans have a stronger one. I just figured I would say that before we go any further. Let's watch this last little bit right quick. When I come back on the other end, I'll tell you exactly why it is the way they are, or why they're doing this crap now, and why it will probably continue through this year, albeit sporadically, but it'll definitely continue. But let's watch this last part.
Support is the establishment dominant majority position of the power structure of this country.
But what you're saying is the obvious. Look, there's a lot of things masked here, and we have to understand. I feel like it's disingenuous even to describe the protests as pro-Hamas or leftists. Like the amalgamation of people that show up at these things, and you've been to these things, maybe you guys have too. You know that there's a lot of groups that show up, especially as they gain momentum and get television, interest. So you'll always have initial people who might be protesting, let's say, to bring light to the Palestinians, who are being killed in atrocious war crime numbers by the state of Israel right now under Netanyahu's government. And it's atrocious. And the U.S. is partially funding that. And those people are very serious about what they're protesting for. And the right now calls them pro-Hamas protesters to discredit them and to try to take light off the IDF, to try to take pressure off of Netanyahu, and to try to push this sort of pro-Israel.
We'll talk about that last thing that was said in the next video. But before I close this video down, I need to give you guys my final thought. I've been saying this for a while, but the vast majority of these protests, especially these protests involving the left, because obviously you're going to have some people who are protesting on the Israeli side, not many, not as many, but especially these ones protesting on the left. This right here is their version of BLM. They used Black Lives Matter as a vessel to get their point across back in 2020. They tried to do it in 2016. They also tried to do it before 2016. This right here is kind of what these people are doing. So in some cases, these people are a bit cagey in how they operate. However, what they don't seem to realize is that they're inviting in their own doom. Then, of course, you've got the peace-loving type, which, of course, will come up in part 2 of this little series I'm doing, because that really is going to talk about how these people are useful idiots, because they always seem to play the victimhood Olympics for the wrong people. And I'll explain that a little bit further in that video. But the fact of the matter is this right here. This right here is their chance to try to put all their grievances into one pot. You see, their plan is to take this right here to the Democratic National Convention. And the Democratic National Convention right now is trying to move everything to a somewhat semi-online affair. They don't want Palestinian or pro-Palestinian protesters out in the street. By the way, the last time the pro-Palestinian protesters went to Chicago, they got into it with the Black Israelite group, who, by the way, were there to protest on behalf of the Free Palestine crowd. But they fought them anyways. That's what I'm saying. These people fight their own allies. And if they fight their own allies who are actually aligned with them ideologically, what the hell do you think that these people will do to their allies who don't align with them ideologically, especially on certain topics like, say, the alphabet community? Just think about that. These people are inviting in their own death. And of course, we can warn them all the hell we want, but until they come out of that little phase, that little mental haze, I really and truly have nothing to say or have any actual suggestions on what to do. The only thing I can say to do is just keep these people the hell away from you, because obviously they're going to bring trouble. And that right there, for the most part, is pretty much it, outside the fact that these people are mentally ill, morbidly obese in some cases, and also, to go on top of that, extremely lonely and highly medicated, also unattractive. Makes you think that maybe they're doing this because they want to be a part of a group or something. Just saying. And eventually, the group they're trying to be a part of will ultimately reject them. And not by simply telling them to leave, but something a lot worse. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section. Please tell me what you think. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Please share the video. Please sound off in the comment section. I put it in my video earlier today with the video that I did talking about Fareed Zakaria's monologue. That this week is going to be kind of a wonky week. It's going to be kind of a different week. This video is coming out on Wednesday. I'm not going to be here in this home to record, but part 2 should be out on Thursday or Friday. And then the Why Nobody Wants to Join the Military will also be out as well. And of course, I'm going to try to post a video on Saturday and Sunday this time around. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try to be looking to do that going forward, especially over the summer, where we're doing basically one video a day that's a little bit better edited. So that way you guys can kind of, it also gives you guys an opportunity to catch up on the content as well. With that being said, please tell me what you think. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I'll see you guys later.